After the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo was cancelled before they even caught the 13th ghost, Hanna-Barbera took a 3-year break before coming back with their cutest iteration of Scooby-Doo yet, with a pup named Scooby-Doo. In this one, the gang are legitimately meddling kids, giving us a new angle for the gang to operate under, while also trying not to get grounded. But does this make the series stand out from any of the rest? Well, in the series premiere, Shaggy does a pretty good job of introducing himself and Scooby-Doo, and also the monsters hiding in Coolsville, as this green sludge monster steals his bike. And we also get to meet the rest of the Scooby-Doo detective agency in Daphne, Fred, and Velma. Fred immediately assumes the culprit to be the local bully, Red Herring, so they follow him over to the swamps, finding a bike that turns out to just be his own. Next they head over to the Daily Babble to find a green dust at the printing press, and then the green monster at the Ferguson estate. Renowned psychic medium Shirley McClue gives the gang some word of advice. Run far away from here. But of course they don't. And the gang head into the spooky old house, falling straight through the floorboards. Man, these lawsuits wrap up quickly. The gang's literally swimming in money right now. But just like that aunt that you've never met before, the monster comes back when they realize the kids have money now. So the gang use the trap fireplace to slide away into the basement, where they do find Shaggy's bike. Scooby sneezing pinballs the monster into the counterfeiting machine, jamming it and catching Mr. Conrad, the newspaper owner. Great, now Shaggy has to look for another job, because who doesn't love child labor? This is a great episode to kick the series off, but while I understand that this is directed towards even younger kids than usual, I have a feeling that the gang explaining every single clue might get old pretty fast. But we'll see. Just as Shag and Scoob are about to call it a night, a news report by one of the long-lost brothers of Donkey Kong alerts them of a bank robbery that just occurred. When Scooby goes out to his doghouse, which seems kinda weird that he'd be an outside dog, but whatever, he finds the creature that they heard about on the news, and runs to get Shaggy and the rest of the gang. They all go inside to check it out, and wow, look at this place. Naturally, the gang split up, with Shaggy and Scooby hitting the buffet table, getting interrupted by the monster. Also, this chase music absolutely slaps. Velma conducts a little bit of research, finding that Scooby's place is covered in sewer sludge, so the police are already en route over here. Oh no, Shaggy's dad's a cop? Everyone assumes the robber to be the janitor, who they found hiding in the doghouse for some reason, and finding all of the gold in a giant hole there doesn't look much better for him. The gang take a raft down through the sewers to the entrance of the bank vault, but the monster chases them right back where they came from, where they do go on a pretty funny chase scene before catching the monster, later unmasking the bank manager Mr. Buxton. I like this one a little bit more than our first one, mostly for that ending chase scene alone. Shaggy and Scooby take their life savings over to the Coolsville comic book convention to buy a very rare first edition comic. And as a bonus treat, we get to see all these cool cosplays. How fun. They run to tell the gang about it, and they all go back to Selma's to investigate, when Dr. Croaker shows up to steal a comic by questionable means, before turning their attention over to Shaggy for his copy. Scooby gets yoinked by the frog's tongue before beginning our first chase, where Shaggy uses moonbound shoes to leap into a chandelier, ditching the froggy foe for now. This gives Shaggy time to get his comic signed by the creator, who gets a slightly damp fingerprint on it, dropping it from a PSA 10 to a PSA 6. Oh, here's the PSA grader now, ready to scam even more people. Dr. Croaker chases the gang through the theater, and yo, is that Godzilla vs. Kong like 30 years ahead of its time? They follow Mr. Cashmore out to his car, which is always a really good idea for kids to do, and find his stash of comics. Now back in the convention, Wendell McWendell finally decides to sell his first edition to the highest bidder. So, Shaggy and Scooby changed into their Commander Cool costumes. Hey, why are all these adults watching? Alright, no more security checks. I need hard drive checks before people are allowed in these things. The monster returns to steal the copy, immediately getting thwarted by running into Velma's trap, and Shaggy turns into auctioneer for this rare comic. This edition was a real bomb though, capturing Dr. Croaker in a sticky bubblegum, and Velma unmasked Wendell McWendell underneath. He wanted to make his edition of the comic the only one left. While he gets hauled off to jail, the gang make Mr. Cashmore feel a little bit better about his dark secret about loving comics, which is pretty sweet actually. Don't bully people for liking things. At the Scooby Snack Factory, a giant cheese monster scares away every worker inside, halting all Scooby Snack production. And this brings me to an important question. I was always under the impression that Scooby Snacks were named after Scooby-Doo, but here we see an already established factory while Scooby is still a puppy. So what came first? The Scooby or the snack? Well, we better find out fast, since Scooby is fresh out of them, and even the stores don't have any. Well, at least there's Acme dog biscuits. The gang go into the factory to try and find some clues, and maybe a few rogue Scooby snacks. but they only find an important clue. And they make sure we take note of it by this special interruption. Okay, that bit was kind of funny, but maybe a little too cheesy. Oh, nope, that was actually just the monster, who chases the gang through the factory. They catch Mr. Roquefort snooping through the factory, but before they can grill him any further, the cheese monster chases them down once more, this time grabbing each of the kids and keeping them tied up. But even without a Scooby Snacks, Scooby's able to be brave and beat the cheese monster. Alright, who's the deviant artist? Velma uses her yo-yo to trip up the cheesy monster, unveiling Larry Acme underneath the mask, who wanted to take the secret formula and rule the market. Late stage capitalism strikes again. I think it's really clever that one of the red herrings be named Roquefort after the cheese, but I think almost no kid would understand that one. This one's always been one of the most memorable episodes for me, and it's still really good. The gang are in attendance for their favorite show, For Better or Worse, with Shaggy and Scooby bringing the tailgate inside. As the hot dog bounces away, Scooby goes to track it down and finds the Jojo Rabbit reference. Okay, not exactly, but this ghostly gangster does hand the dog back to the dog. The host of the show comes out to energize the crowd and coerce them to buy a bunch of overpriced merch. So, basically the average YouTuber. Shaggy and Scooby get called on stage to play the game, facing off against the Brainy Bunch. And it goes not well, to say the least. Realizing they're losing precious watch time and engagement, they bring in a new guest, the Ghost, to really shake things up. Instead of telling them to like and subscribe, Al Capone here just scares everyone outside, leading the gang to find various suspects and red herrings. No, not that one. During the investigation, Capone chases Shaggy, Scooby, and Velma to rejoin with Daphne and Fred, where each predicate their theories of the baddie based on the clues. Except for Fred. Then they set up the grand finale trap, setting up this game show to reveal Pristina underneath the mask, who actually had a pretty good villain plan, disguising not only as Al Capone, but also Mel. We love a talented queen. Shaggy and Scooby watch a preview for a new horror movie, which scares the living daylights out of them. Then they get the unskippable mission of delivering Shaggy's little sister to the babysitter, and the gang have approximately 22.8 minutes to join in. At the babysitter's place, the gang get a bit frightened when the babysitter steps out. And you know what? I get it. I get scared of hot people too. She chases them around town, but eventually gets locked out of her own house. Down in the basement, Boogity Bones rises from the grave to attack Shaggy, and scares the rest of the gang into finding some clues, with a little help from the newscaster. When the babysitter returns with her loser boyfriend, the gang starts setting up all these Home Alone type traps, and they all get wasted on this geezer. Shuggy runs off somewhere, or crawls off somewhere, right into the babysitter's arms, while Manny returns to chase the gang around some. Hey, remember Boogity Bones? Yeah, cause neither did the episode. Eventually Maddie and Boogity are caught, with the latter being revealed as Molly the Mole, and all of their stolen cash is buried in the house. So the gang get to enjoy their movie night after all, with Scooby opting for the non-horror movie after all this. The kids go on an unchaperoned ski trip to this creepy old chalet. So what's the worst that could happen? Well, when the cooler sibling of the cyber chase guy pops up and turns everything frozen, that's a pretty good start. They ring the doorbell to meet the owners and, is this a safe space? They may be a bit green under the gills, but they're nice enough to invite the gang inside for some dinner. Some local scumbag invites himself in to try and buy the house from them and build a super mall on top of it, but is quickly shown the door. Just as everyone turns in for the night, the Ice Demon gets caught in bed with Shaggy and Scooby, which is a pretty bad look, but apparently they were just here for a cupcake. They chase the boys around a bit, and just as the gang are about to get iced, Velma uses Reflect, and the demon's vanquished for now. Until the gang check out the next lead, and of course the demon follows, causing an avalanche on them. Somehow they escape certain death, and head into the old mine to find some more clues, and of course the Ice Demon, who blocks their exit and then blocks them up. After a fun little montage, they eventually break out, running into the businessman from before doing some illegal work on the property. So the gang hatch their final plan, eventually catching the forest ranger in the act. So the Morgansons get to keep their ski lodge. This Ice Demon was always one of the scary monsters to me when I was a kid. I just think the ice variant of Cyber Chase always stuck out to me. The gang are on a field trip to the museum to learn about the legendary Asakari, when the samurai ghost shows up to steal the swords and return to the shadows. And much like Yasuke, no one believes that the ghost was actually real, even though they absolutely were. So everyone assumes that Shaggy and Scooby stole the swords instead. The gang head back into the museum that night to meddle around, eavesdropping on an argument between Miss Takai, Mr. Dayton, and Thornsby, who are still trying to figure out how the swords were even taken. While the gang try and avoid the grown-ups, they find the insurance policy on the swords, which makes Miss Takai the first suspect. Well, the first one after Shag and Scoob. But before we can clear all that up, the samurai ghost returns and chases them into the plane exhibit. And wow, this is what first class flying is like? Must be nice. There's a quick layover in Egypt, where the ghost gets caught up in the mummy tomb, but hits the connecting flight down to the basement. While down there, the gang find the broken sarcophagus, the swords, and of course the ghost. We get one of the most fun chase sequences in the entire show, leading to the ghost running off with the swords once more. But Velma pulls the old switcheroo on them, and then apparently becomes a black belt in martial arts, slamming the samurai a couple of times before they're caught, and unmask Mr. Dayton. The gang's next mystery is down at the Marine Institute, where they report that some of the dolphins have gone missing. Now, you may say that these first graders are in no way, shape, or form qualified to tackle this, but you've forgotten about a nice little X factor called nepotism. Velma's Aunt Thelma is the head of the whole place. She shows them around a little bit, when the headless skateboarder rolls in and scares them all inside. And oh my god, this dude is so cool. I don't know if I will do a creature/villain ranking, but this is absolutely an S tier design. After the brief introduction, they find that Skipper the dolphin has gone missing too. We get the usual integration of our red herrings into the story, yes, including Red Herring himself. Cosplaying as my new favorite skater. But once they arrive at the skate park, the real one shows up and does a gnarly heel flip over the gang, who eventually use a rocket-powered skateboard to escape. Also, do y'all remember rocket power? That was peak. Inside of the shed, the gang find a bunch of trophies for Al the owner, who used to be a world champion before he got involved with drugs. I'm like, half surprised, half not surprised at all that they used drugs for this. This was the era where a lot of the War on Drugs campaign leaked into the children's television to tell us the dangers of drugs. Couldn't they have used literally anybody else besides a skateboarder though? This guy smokes mid-weed and nothing else. God forbid a guy has hobbies. The gang are at least a little more sympathetic towards him, so they agree to help him figure all this out. They scuba dive out into the sea, where surely no headless skateboarders will. Oh my god, he's got an underwater shark skateboard. Eventually they find the dolphins locked up down in the caves, who are all being used to transport drugs. So now the gang know who's under the costume. Would they really make it anyone else other than Al? No. Not only because the American prison system doesn't rehabilitate whatsoever, and this reinforces the cyclical nature of incarceration, but also because they have to drive it home that drugs are, in fact, icky, and will make you a bad person. Also, apparently the beach patrol lady was in on it too, and this dude is an undercover FBI agent. Sure, why the hell not? I get what they're going for in this episode, but it's not clever at all or subversive with it. But should I really expect that from a kids show from 1988? It's Halloween night and the gang are out trick-or-treating, with Shaggy having the best costume of the bunch. Such a slay. But after bankrupting this guy of all of his sweets, next stop is the spooky mansion with a fun little playground, where the legend of Boo Beard originates. The nice couple at the door concede that, yeah, they do have a ghost. But don't worry, he's super chill. Yeah, real chill. The ghost will continue the tantrum until the couple sell the house, and instead of becoming a seller, just heads down into the cellar, right where the handyman is. Of course, the gang offer their services, and while it's tough to turn down 4 kids and a dog who offer to catch a ghost, the couple wisely do so. Back at the only treehouse that gives the kids next door a run for their money, a real ghost shows up to get the gang's help, as he's the real friendly ghost from the house. While up in the attic, the gang find a quartet of clues, the most important one probably being the ghost themselves, so they hit the zipline to escape. The ghost tries to do the same, but falls right back into the cellar, as all of our potential suspects emerge and check out the commotion. Just as they find the breadcrumb trail, or french fry trail, to an underground tunnel, the ghost follows and chases them right through the house, picking up the owners to join in too. And that's the final straw for them. They agree to sell the house to the groundskeeper, who immediately plans to tear it all down. The gang try and show him that everything is fine because ghosts hate magnets, but end up failing forwards into capturing them, unmasking Jack behind the whole thing, who was going to make the Coolsville version of the Burj Khalifa. Of course, the cousin of both Wiz and Mia.
Ugh, like how, paleface?
Okay, great start here. The gang are out camping in the woods when Shaggy and Scooby run into a talking totem pole, who chases them off and tells them to stay off their land. Luckily, the gang are not the US government from the 19th century, so there's actually a better chance that they follow the command. Oh, nope, they immediately start meddling. They meet one of the elders of the tribe and his grandson, who Daphne is immediately smitten by, and the gang begin trying to find some clues about the totem monster. This one bozo shows up to tell the gang about his plans to build a new hotel, and even if he's not the totem monster, he's still the villain here. Warren joins the gang around the campfire, gifting them the story stick, and while the gang take turns telling their stories, they get interrupted by the totem grabbing Daphne, Freddy, and Velma, and chase them all around the reservation. They eventually lose the totem with some help from a Hanna-Barbera, So now they can set up the final trap, which involves covering the monster in, let's go with mayonnaise. But that's not the full plan, as Velma takes an extremely hungry termite and lets it go to town while she calls the reservation police. Ha! See, I told you, that one skis ball was under the mask the whole time, trying to drive the natives off their land and put in this stupid hotel. What is he, a government contractor? The gang could definitely use some updates to their terminology, but overall this episode's just a bit bland. Daphne has the gang over at her house for a playdate, when she realizes her entire room has been stolen by someone. Her security guard calls in the secret weapon, Robopup, who basically does everything that Scooby can do, but a little bit better. So while Freddy and the girls take Robopup to search for clues, Shaggy and Scooby search for foods. And if there's one place to find a ghostly chef, it's gonna be the kitchen, as the pair are chased around the kitchen island, eventually getting caught in a food fight. The rest of the gang find a clue in the foyer, and find the boys cowering in the bushes, explaining what exactly drove them there.
I was scared and yet mysteriously attracted to him at the same time.
You know, good for you for admitting it, Shaggy. The Blakes tell the gang about Chef Pierre Goulash, an old chef hired by the family to torture them all. Wait, no, that's not right. Oh, this says create a tort for them. Look, it's a simple mistake. I'm sure we can get this all figured out. Okay, maybe not. The gang dine and dash away right to their next clue. And oh my god, this guy is a sniper's dream. Out in the East Wing, Scooby finds one of Daphne's diamond barrettes, and eventually comes across the rest of her stolen belongings in the Blake subway station. Ghoulie Goulash chases them out so they can load up the car with goods, but eventually gets tucked into bed and unmasks his security guard Gordon. Let's see, Gordon becoming a French chef, having a blue mask, and becoming police adjacent. Call that, Gordon Blue. Okay, look, I'll keep working on that one while we take him to jail. Hey, Robopup, what the hell, man? Kinda forgot that Robopup's working for Gordon here. And apparently the animators got commissioned by Pyrocynical, leaving Robopup a bit out of commission. There's nowhere really to put this in the synopsis, but I like that Shaggy gets the cross-dress and it's not really played for laughs, it just kinda happens. I think that's cool. Freddy gets his first video camera and immediately becomes an insufferable auteur. Geez, everyone's a critic, I guess. This string bean monster runs into the jewelry shop and steals a couple handfuls of jewels before hitting the pet store to take the register. As the gang begin their investigation, they meet the man behind the mask. The gang get hired by Vincent Thorne to try and clear his name. So once the theater gets out, the least entitled Letterboxd user leaves their review in person, ensuring at least one person actually sees it. Oh wait, it's not a Letterboxd user. They're actually employed. Oh, nope, immediately got fired. Back to the logs, movie boy. While the gang finds some clues at the studio, they immediately get called back into the mall by Vincent Thorne, who gets grabbed by Stinkweed, and the gang get chased around once more. The monster gets fired from Foot Locker, flying into the bushes where FBI agent Jane Thursday emerges. Scooby takes some performance-enhancing drugs, and catches the creature planting some more evidence before getting chased around again. But after giving the gang a little bit of time to prepare, Freddy finally gets to shoot his movie, and the star of the show is none other than Stinkweed, aka Vincent Thorne. He was just trying to get the franchise cancelled so he wouldn't have to play the dreaded character anymore. And this episode's pretty good, actually. Him trying to use the gang to clear his name is really fun, even if it majorly backfired. Scooby gets a new collar for his birthday from Mamadou, but before he can flex his new iced out chain, a ghostly dog catcher named Buster McMuttmauler rains on his birthday parade. Everyone concludes that the collar is cursed, so Scooby tries to give it back to Mrs. Knittingham, who instead just gets kidnapped by the fiend. The gang take the dudes with them on the pursuit of justice, as we're introduced to all of our main suspects, while Shaggy and Scooby introduce themselves to a mid-episode snack. They get busted by Buster, who busts down the door to the bathroom they were hiding in and eventually sneak out of. They run right into Mr. Goodman, the real dog catcher, but you better not call him Saul. Once the dudes sniff out their next clue, the dog catcher, sure enough, catches the dog, who turns boneless to escape. Scooby's mom and dad get captured next, so now Scooby really means business, going into the spooky factory with no Scooby snacks at all. But that bravery was thinner than the dog napper, and I mean, he's not even skin and bone, just bone. After the big chase, the gang find the final clue they need, and pull the classic, you gotta be quicker than that. But it doesn't quite work out, as Scooby gets spiked into space and the rest of the gang get captured. But what goes up must come back down, as Scooby lands on the dog catcher, ruining this skelly's celly, and releasing the kidnapped beings. They unmask Mr. Tricks and Stuff, who used flour to give him that ghostly glow. Finally, we get to meet the rest of the Doo family, and everyone can live happily ever after. For some reason, a bunch of kids are left unsupervised at the toy factory during the night, where a big monster emerges from behind the vault. And finally they're unmasked as Red Herring. Alright, everyone can go home now. But when this Cyclops alien picks up Commander Cool and Melamut, the investigation is back on. Shaggy and Scooby rocket ski away, crashing into one of the toy displays, giving Shaggy a grade 2 concussion, so now he's convinced that he's the real Commander Cool. The gang meet the toy company owner and her assistant, who provide them with the initial leads of suspects. They go up into the spooky attic, where they find the alien drooling in a no drooling zone, so Commander Cool handcuffs them. The pieces of plastic hold them for maybe 1 second, and now the chase is on. Oh wait, no chase yet. Instead, the gang head into this spooky house. Aha, I knew it was chase time. Oh, okay, false alarm, again. Instead, they go over to Stupendous Toys to see what this bozo and Ebolo is about, but they're quickly kicked out. No matter, I'm sure Velma collected all the info she needs. So they head back to the Cool Cave where they're accosted by the monster again, who's really elevating the scares. And finally it's time for a chase. And no fake outs this time, as the gang get chased around, eventually finding the final clue Velma needed to set up the sting operation. But when the monster counters, Commander Cool eventually gets the sense knocked back into him, and is now just normal Shaggy. Before he gets eaten by the monster, Scooby knocks over some crates to capture them, finally unmasking Barbara Simone, who was looking to steal blueprints and sell them to rivals. This episode has the same vibe from an earlier Scooby series, where Shaggy also got a concussion and was convinced he was a superhero, but this one was done way better. Daphne rents out a theater for the gang to watch the great Buddy Chelner perform some cool songs. But just like Elvis did to Chuck Berry, this goofball steals his whole flow. Luckily, Daphne has a super normal affinity for this grown man, so she saves Buddy from the ghost. He hires the gang to track down his tormentor, so the gang get right on the case as Scooby tries to take a picture of the getaway car, accidentally becoming the inspiration for one of the best shots in cinematic history from The Aviator. But they can use this clue to go to the Parker Place Museum, where the caretaker sells them a ticket. For not having a lot of business, he sure does have a lot of change. Hey Velma, note that down. Thanks, Queen. The gang eventually find Purvis Parker, his impersonator, in the studio cooking up some dastardly beats. We are not making it out of Cool's boat with this one. As the gang enter Purvis's secret vault, they find all the gold records to be fake, but the ghost of Purvis feels the temperature rising and grabs Buddy, causing Scooby to really bring the roof down. They all manage to ditch the ghost. Oh, never mind, Buddy gets kidnapped again. Daphne leads the charge to find Buddy, instead finding the museum worker, who vows to shut it down by tomorrow. And before the gang even get a chance to take a break, the ghost of Purvis returns to start the big chase, giving Velma everything she needs to set up the final trap. Not that it really matters, since Scooby accidentally captures the gang instead, but does turn up the amp to absolutely blow the ghost away, as they are unmasked as the museum worker. Wow, what a shock. Who could have guessed? And to end off, the old man that we've seen throughout the episode also unmasks, as Purvis Parker himself. So Buddy and he perform a concert that night to celebrate. Freddy's Uncle Eddie purchases the National Exaggerator, so now the gang become junior reporters. Time to get their first story from the editor. Oof, geez, that is an HR nightmare. Before the gang can fully capture Chickenstein, they break through the wall and make their great escape. Velma deduces that the dirt comes from the Coolsville Cemetery, where Fred finds his hero, Scoop Byline, the least scummy TMZ reporter. While he goes to invade some privacy, this lady gritties through the cemetery, upset that Scoop supplanted her role as star reporter. Scooby and Shaggy eventually get spooked into the mausoleum, where Chickenstein lives, and they run off and collect the rest of the gang, entering the home of a local psychic who claims to be the one who spawned in Chickenstein. So maybe she's Chickenstein and this is Chickenstein's monster. Hey, where'd she go? The gang get the best of the monster this time, but I'm sure they'll be back. Back at the National Exaggerator, we're introduced to some more suspects, and Eddie's already going bankrupt. Fun fact, this was the previous record for fastest loss of money before Elon Musk bought Twitter. The gang have to drag Shag and Scoop back to the cemetery, where they catch Chickenstein going back into the mausoleum, and they decide to follow the hybrid inside, who begins the big chase scene. They fall right into the basement, finding a bunch of new stuff hidden down there. So we get the grand reopening of the National Exaggerator, which quickly gets spoiled by Chickenstein, who eventually gets turned into a cube creature, being unmasked as... Who is this guy? Oh, my apologies. Who is this girl? Granny Sweetwater was behind a big theft spree, and was trying to shut down the Exaggerator in the process. Is there any reason Chickenstein was chosen for this one? No, not really. Does it really matter? Yeah, actually, it matters to me a lot. It's scary movie night with the gang. Unfortunately, Shaggy and Scooby are having a bit of a spat right now, but nothing can stop the intrusion of ads into beloved content. Speaking of which, this video is not sponsored, but I had you going, didn't I? The Burger Monster steals the bucket of cash from O'Greasy, and then pulls a Ringu moment and crawls straight through the TV. So this gives the gang 7 days to solve the mystery, and Mr. O'Greasy arrives to purchase the gang services, leading the gang back to his Bucket-O building. They start roaming the halls, eventually coming face to face with the monster. But Scooby quickly gets rid of the walking heart attack. Not that Shaggy's too steezed from or anything. At the O'Greasy restaurant, the gang meet the nice old man who's been working here for 38 years, and Velma purchases a bucket of clues. They head back to the headquarters, where the head burger is waiting. Wait, actually the gang are waiting on them. But the service must have been terrible, as the burger dines and dashes. The gang follow a trail of O'Greasy buckets back to a spooky mansion where the burger monster resides, and begins the Coolsville circuit. Also, I don't know if I'll do a ranking of all these chase songs, but Haunted Hamburger might be the best one. Shag and Scoob still can't work together, leaving the rest of the gang to play catch up, and now Shaggy's kidnapped. This finally kicks Scooby into gear, who saves his bestie and nabs the burger bandit. Finally, our hungry heroes are friends again, and Skippy Johnson is unveiled underneath the costume. After 38 years, he never got a raise, and you know what, minimum wage for that long would also make me into an insufferable monster. Also, this monster design always stuck with me as a kid. It's very goofy, but instantly memorable. At the science fair show, the gang patiently await for Velma to take home first prize for the 3rd consecutive year. She stuns the crowd with a Dinkley 2000, and as they all head out to celebrate, the machine breaks free from the outlet and starts roaming the halls of Coolsville Junior High. The next morning, the kid who comes in 2nd place to Velma congratulates her and starts twiddling his thumbs and kicking his feet. So basically Gibby Norton before Gibby Norton. The gang knows that all of their lockers have been robbed, and all their items are tracked back to Velma's locker, the most serious of which is probably the theft of the teacher's answer key for the next test, which earns Velma suspension from school, which for her is basically like the death penalty. Of course the gang, aside from Freddy, I guess, believe that she's innocent, so they try and find the real perp. They sneak back into the school that night, with Velma disguised as a slay queen. And once inside, Velma finds tracks that match her robot, which is right behind them, sprouting a pair of arms to grab her. Scooby may get the boot at first, but eventually saves their Brainiac buddy. They don't have enough clues just yet, so they decide to follow the machine to the janitor's closet. Hey, at least the monster provides the chase music this time. And in return, the gang provides sustenance for the monster. Velma and Scooby recognize the dangers of AI, and overload the system, causing it to crash. This releases the captured kids, and eventually reveals Bruce Wormsley behind it all, tired of always being the 2nd smartest kid in school. Well, at least he'll be the smartest kid in homeschool, as I'm sure he's going to be expelled after this little stunt. I really like this episode. The gang banding together to help Velma clear her name is really sweet. It was a dark and stormy night, and the weather must be really getting to the gang, as they're all incredibly rude to Scooby-Doo. So much so that he runs away from home, where this lady pulled straight out of an Aardman film is waiting for him. When the gang realized they were a bit too harsh on him, they start the search for Scooby. And I don't know if this is a hot take or anything, but Scooby might arguably be my least favorite member of the gang. But this episode shows how pertinent he is to their success overall, especially in this iteration of the franchise. They follow the Scooby trail into town while reminiscing on the good times they had with him. Meanwhile, the chicken run lady doesn't really know how to take no for an answer, as she keeps trying to get Scooby to come with her. Finally, they chuck him back down to the docks, saving him from certain doom, and apologizing for hurting his feelings. The woman chases them around and uses a swordfish as a weapon against them, before finally getting scared off. Eventually, Velma cracks the case, uncovering Paula Picasso's plan to paint a portrait of Scooby. You know, she could have used some other words than "I want your head," but it's all just a big misunderstanding. While everyone does make up in the end, this episode just kinda makes me sad. The gang head over to the Coolsville amusement park for the day, and Shaggy has enough box tops here to redeem the first ride on Monster Mountain. Also, are box tops still a thing? Before we can figure that one out, the gang realize that the park's been shut down, and the turnip mascot's left crying on the curbside. Oh look, the Uber's here. Genuinely the most normal Uber experience. As the clown flies off with Shaggy, Rootin' Tootin' Scooby reels him back in, and the gang enter the park. The turnip turns back up, now with his brother, the owner. If the gang can crack this case, they'll get free admission for life, so that's a pretty good deal. We also meet their sister Jenny and their brother Bart, who owns a neighboring theme park. But before he can tell them to eat his shorts, Zombo pops back up to tell them to stay away from Gypner's Joyland once more. But of course they won't do that, as finding blueprints for a condo leads them to a special nighttime investigation. But as Shaggy, Scooby, and Velma find their next clue, Zombo chases them out once more, joining back up with Daphne and Fred in Sloppaland to bring the fun to them. After ditching the clown, the gang head over to the real clown show, Gypner's Joyland, where all the employees are leaving. And cue that chase music, cause Zombo's back once more, chasing them all over the park before Scooby emerges to try and outclown the clown. Shaggy finally gets to ride Monster Mountain, just maybe not exactly as he would have liked to. Much like anything I made in Thrillville, this ride is way too intense, and makes all the riders sick to their stomachs. But this does give them enough time to capture an unmasked Joey Gypner, looking to buy out all of his sibling shares. And this one seemed like a copy and paste of the Scooby-Doo episode, just with no drugs in it this time. Okay, with less drugs in it this time. It's just a boring, normal night for the gang, which drives Freddy into madness, his obsession with red herring getting the best of him. The gang challenge him not to accuse Red of anything for the next 24 hours. Should be a breeze, right? Well, when his aunt comes knocking at the door saying her bike was stolen, and Red just happens to be at the crime scene, he's really pushing his luck. Man, it sure would be silly if Red actually did it this time. Before we think about subverting expectations too much, the boogie biker shows up and immediately wins a drag race. No, the other kind. While checking out the garage, the boogie biker corners the gang and is just about to grab them, when Scooby rides through and crashes into them. According to the calculations, the only person this could be is... no. Red Herring? He hosted his own Pit My Ride episode with his Aunt's bike and made it good as new, which is actually very sweet. This one's only a half episode, giving me some nightmarish flashbacks to those Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo ones. But this one's actually very well paced that you hardly notice it. Let's see how we can fill out the second half of this episode now, as we start off with the gang at the Coolsville Space Center. Velma's newest experiment is being tested today, so the gang get treated to a tour of the ship, unfortunately being interrupted by a cowboy space ghost, or ghost space cowboy, or space you know what, doesn't matter. With the launch postponed, the gang really have nothing better to do other than look for some clues, so they get right to it. The first of which being a boot belonging to this guy, Billy Bob Joe Bob Harris, and then the chief scientist, Simon Simonson. Some all-time names here, it must be said. But as the ghost crawls out of the screen, Scooby hits them with the classic Xbox Live Party question, what is Italy shaped like? And the perp is caught and unmasked as red hair. Oh, sorry, that was last episode. This one was Simon Simonson, jealous of a literal child that her project was chosen over his. And don't be bitter, just get better. I actually don't mind these half episodes. The formula was kinda starting to wear on me. Scooby and the gang head down to the arcade, where Scooby sets 3 new records simultaneously. He's a natural born gamer, and immediately starts setting records on this brand new game, when the game's villain, Big Wig, pops out and attacks the gang, kidnapping Daphne and the hairnet. Scooby really blows them away, and saves Daphne in a similar fashion to Gwen Stacy in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Slightly different results though. If you ever wondered what Daphne's father does for a living, it's exploiting child labor laws. Daphne's in charge of this place, so the gang's on the case. We meet a trio of dweebs who are now the top suspects, and it's time to look for some clues. Freddy, you know the drill.
Let's split up, gang! Gang?
It's okay, Freddy. The accident wasn't your fault. It's time to let go. Shag and Scoob get into a hairy situation, but also get to play salon, so it's not all that bad. They trace the hair back into town, where that one goofball from earlier lives. But before they can get any closer, Big Wig returns and captures the entire gang. Velma pulls out a bottle of hair remover, which frightens the hairball away, leaving behind their... cross? This Derwin guy might be a little weird, but he's a game developer, so the bar's pretty low to not be the worst one.
We interrupt a pup named Scooby-Doo for this important announcement. If the groovy rock and roll music you are about to hear really turns you on, feel free to get down and boogie. Yee-haw!
Hey, what? Swiftly moving on. The gang, mainly Velma, finds the last clue they need to set up the trap. So that's where Scooby the Barbarian comes in. Of course, it initially backfires, with Scooby getting moosed. But eventually he pounces on the Walking Bad hair day, unveiling Krusty Baker behind the terror spree. Daphne admits to her parents that she doesn't want to run the business, and they accept that she just wants to be a kid. And we all cried into our stack of $100 bills. The gang are at the Coolsville Wrestling Federation for the grand reopening, when this cow arrives and ruins the whole event. Man, this wrestling stuff is getting more real by the day. Commander Cool and Mellow Mutt wriggle free this time, but considering it's been like 2 minutes, I've got a feeling that we'll be seeing the Hooded Heifer again real soon. We get a little bit of background lore on the disgraced wrestler, and the gang search for some clues.
Oh, excuse me, miss.
Freddy, she's a he.
Aw man, Daphne's a turf? I was just starting to like her too. After Bo Peep exits, the gang head over to the Swindlesons, where Shaggy and Scooby find their clue. But before our heroes can enjoy their hero, the Hooded Heifer chases them off, and they join back with the gang in the Swindlesons' office. They're quickly shown the door by the, muscle, and Scooby has a tango with the cow, who drops yet another clue. While they go to interrogate Baron Scuzzball, they instead find the Hooded Heifer, as Scooby chases them off with the final clue. Now it's time for the main event, as Scooby and the cow duel it out, with Scooby eventually winning this Hell in the Cell match. Now in custody, Velma unmasked the hooded heifer as the coolest little comment. He really steered his life the wrong way with this one. Shaggy and Scooby are having a nice little sleepover, but like most sleepovers, there won't be much sleeping going on. Not because they're playing games or watching movies, but because this hellhound emerges from a stack of pizza boxes. You know, that was my third guess actually. Scooby manages to get rid of them, but his parents also seem to think that this were-do is a bit of a problem. So of course the gang offer their services. Over at Doo Manor, the gang meet this professor who lore dumps on the were-do, so it's time to start some clue hunting. Scooby's Uncle Horton is looking a bit rough, but he's got a bounce anyways, so no matter. They find the real Uncle Horton in the casket, but he's arguably just as weird, so might as well go find the were-do. Oh hey, surprise! After some party shenanigans, we catch back up with the professor, and this woman who really hates the do's. Hey Scooby, hit it! After the chase into the basement, Scooby finds his next cosplay outfit, has a shouting match with the were-do, and neutralizes them with a Monty Mole bit from Moo Moo Meadows. The were-do is unmasked as the professor, and they're quickly taken away. You know, I really dig this episode. I'm sorry. It's bath day for Scooby, and much like me trying to wash my dog, it's also bath day for Shaggy. After he goes to dry off, a dog catcher launches himself into the yard to try and catch Scooby, using every Looney Tunes technique in the book, safes, grand pianos, and super ultra death rays. Eventually he gets mowed down and flung into space, and Scooby finally gets his long overdue bath. That's about all I got for this one. It's a 3-minute episode, but pretty fun. It's another rainy day in for the gang at the Scooby-Doo Detective Agency headquarters, where nothing bad ever happens or goes wrong whatsoever. Nah, who am I kidding? This old librarian enters the treehouse to retrieve her book, and gives the boys until midnight to return it. So Scooby finds it with plenty of episodes to spare, and the gang head over to the now closed library. This woman confronts them, showing off her stamp collection. And not a great look opening up your trench coat to children. You know what, someone keep an eye on her while we go inside. In there, the gang find Mrs. Shusham, who chases them around the library, eventually being unmasked as Bernie Spinder. She found out that the book Shaggy had was worth a lot of money, and wanted it all for herself. Shaggy and Scooby hit up an all-you-can-eat buffet, which of course for them is closer to the all-the-restaurant can serve buffet. But when the time comes to pay, neither of the boys has the scratch. The panic attack sends Shaggy and Scooby into a dream sequence, where the waiter turns into this discount Wario, serving up some real delectable dishes. While he serves up Sweaty Sock Sandwich, Mayor Blake gives Commander Cool and Melamut their next target. Down at the restaurant, Velma's on dish duty, providing Waitrose the ammo he needs for his fine china bazooka. The heroes get captured and are about to be drowned in chocolate sauce, but it's been about 4 minutes since they ate last. So, they're starving. They eat themselves free, save the day and the damsel in distress. Now snapping out of the dream, the waiter commends them for their hard work, and gives them some cash. So, not a bad deal honestly. Up in the treehouse for the last time, the gang are having a nice day making pizzas and showing off their transporter devices. Velma uses that to transport them right to New York City, where a giant snail pops up from the sewers and attacks them with a hockey stick. So, yeah, this is New York alright. Velma's other invention accidentally shocks Scooby, causing his nose to become a supercharged clue sniffer. No time for any of that though. The gang's got business to tend to. Well, mainly just Freddy, who got an invitation from Critter Getters, a failing ghost catching service. Maybe they should switch over to pest catching, as this snail monster sure is annoying. They chase Shaggy and Scooby all over the world, but as they say, all roads lead to the Bronx, and they kick the snail back to the sewers. The gang meet up with the Ghoul Gone guy, who's like a walking advertisement for the company, handing out all types of free garbage to them. Out on the street, the gang run into Chopperone, I mean Engelbert Newton, who gives them a sob story. But the real story is the return of the menacing mollusk, who chases the kids all over New York, getting dunked on at Rucker Park, and cornering them at Lady Liberty, running in fear at the sight of salt. Lester Leonard is shown capturing the ghost, but Velma points out that Scooby's nose didn't blink again, so something's not quite adding up. The gang set up a fake Critter Getters commercial, and eventually do catch the snail monster, unmasking Lester Leonard as the culprit. He was a fraud the whole time? I'm so shocked. 30 more episodes down, and this one was every bit as fun as I remember it being as a kid. Unfortunately though, one of those does have to be last place, and that's gonna be Scooby-Doo, followed by The Story Stick, Catcher on the Sly, A Bicycle Built for Boo, Doggone Scooby, Now Museum, Now You Don't, The Schnook Who Took My Comic Book, Curse of the Collar, Dawn of the Spooky Shuttle Scare, The Ghost of Mrs. Shusham, The Spirit of Rock and Roll, The Were-Do of Doo Manor, The Wrath of Waitrose, For Letter or Worse, Ghost Who's Coming to Dinner, Night of the Boogie Biker, The Babysitter from Beyond, The Sludge Monster from the Earth's Core, WrestleManiacs, Mayhem of the Moving Mollusk, Snow Place Like Home, The Computer Walks Among Us, The Return of Commander Cool, Terror, Thy Name is Zombo, Chickenstein Lives, Lights, Camera, Monster, Horror of the Haunted Hairpiece, Wanted Cheddar Alive, Robopup, and of course my favorite was Night of the Living Burger. A pup named Scooby-Doo will always hold a special place in my heart as one of my most watched Scooby series growing up. Some of these episodes and monsters are just so iconic that you don't really mind it being even more childish than usual. And even still, there's some really good jokes in here. And the art style is just so cute, it holds up really well. But unfortunately, the Scooby-Doo shows would take a break for about a decade, coming back in the new millennium with a fan favorite, What's New Scooby-Doo? That one is coming up next. But before all that, thank you again to all my patrons and channel members for the support. And, bye!